Professor Oak is an important figure in the Pokémon universe, and to Ash. He often serves as his mentor and friend. He is always there for Ash with timely advice or a piece of his world-famous Pokémon poetry. Professor Oak is the first in a line of arborist professors we meet throughout the Pokémon universe. Professors are usually named after some type of tree or plant: Professor Birch, Professor Elm, Professor Ivy, Professor Juniper, and even Professor Rowan. First and foremost, Professor Oak is a Pokémon researcher, a man who studies the behavior of Pokémon and their interaction with the human community. He's credited with a ton of material that's related to Pokémon, and all that data helped him to build his greatest invention ever, the Pokédex. While he always shows a keen intellect and sage wisdom, Professor Oak actually knows a bit about battling as well. His Pokémon of choice is an extremely powerful Dragonite. Professor Oak is a skilled practitioner of Pokémon poetry, expertly crafting haiku-like poems of 15 to 17 syllables. They not only describe different aspects and traits about Pokémon, but also serve as metaphors for important life lessons, whose deep meanings are often overlooked by the casual listener. Some examples include, Blastoise fight, or hide away to fight again some other day, and Sandslash rolls into a spiny ball 3 meals a day and eats them all. When life is a mystery, it's your answer. Professor Oak's vast lab, and it has to be vast since he holds hundreds of Pokémon, is in Pallet Town, Ash's hometown. We get a few glimpses of the lab as Professor Oak reports to Ash or vice versa. It is the storage area for all Pokémon that trainers wish to leave when their rosters get too full. He lives up the road from Delia Ketchum, Ash's mom. His most recent assistant is Tracy Sketchit, who shares similar interests in Pokémon and art. He has a cocky, brash grandson named Gary Oak. Professor Oak's vast lab, and it has to be vast since he holds hundreds of Pokémon, is in Pallet Town, Ash's hometown. We get a few glimpses of the lab as Professor Oak reports to Ash or vice versa. It is the storage area for all Pokémon that trainers wish to leave when their rosters get too full. He lives up the road from Delia Ketchum, Ash's mom. His most recent assistant is Tracy Sketchit, who shares similar interests in Pokémon and art. He has a cocky, brash grandson named Gary Oak. The 3 Pokémon that Professor Oak offers to the young, new trainers in the Kanto region from which they choose their first partner Pokémon are the Grass-type Bulbasaur, the Fire-type Charmander, and the Water-type Squirtle. On Ash's first day he slept in, and by the time he made it to Professor Oak's lab all of the regular 3 choices for new trainers were gone. So in a highly irregular move, Professor Oak was forced to offer Ash the only available Pokémon he had in his lab at that time, a Pikachu. Professor Ivy certainly doesn't resemble the other Pokémon professors. She's young and very stylish. She also makes the briefest appearance of the other professors. So what's Ivy's deal? Professor Felina Ivy is the resident professor of the Orange Islands. Since the island chain is so scattered, her research takes her to many of the distant land masses. She specializes in the physiological differences among Pokémon in the various regions. For example, she tries to determine why a Vileplume may look different on one island as opposed to another island. Brock's match. Brock decides that he wants to stay with Professor Ivy during the Orange Island journeys, but he appears back in Pallet Town during the reunion celebration. So what happened to his internship with Ivy? No one knows, but Brock responds with quaking, shaking fear every time her name is mentioned. "Don't mention that name," is his only response. Professor Ivy's researched Pokémon. Gyarados. Ivy rides to shore on a Gyarados, which she seems to be very close to. Professor Ivy's swimsuit-clad figure and introduction to Ash and friends is certainly unique and most unprofessor-like. But like other professors, she is very smart and an accomplished author. Pokémon adaptive variations as a function of regional distribution. Vileplume. The Vileplume on Valencia Island are somewhat different than the Vileplume in Ash's Pokédex. This is Ivy's field of study, the physical differences in Pokémon from different regions. Magikarp. What exactly is Ivy doing with the Magikarp in her lab? The hapless Magikarp has wires attached to it in several places. Poliwhirl. When Professor Ivy is first introduced, Poliwhirl is in the lagoon. Raticate. Ivy tries to save a Raticate that gets caught in Vileplume's spore-spreading defensive maneuvers. Unfortunately, Ivy pays the price and is hospitalized, but they both recover. Butterfree. Butterfree is not eating well, which worries Professor Ivy. This is Brock's chance to shine, as he concocts a berry-enhanced bowl of food for the Butterfree to impress Professor Ivy. Team Rocket's machines. Villains can be lonely people. Sometimes they need a helping hand when pulling off the dastardly schemes. Unfortunately, Jesse and James used to be bumbling, ineffectual knuckleheads who couldn't pour water out of a shoe if the directions were on the heel. Somehow, though, they managed to create the most elaborate, nefarious contraptions in their spare time. Thankfully, they seem to have become more competent. These are just a few of the crazy inventions. The Meowth balloon, incredibly unsafe and easily destroyed. This is Team Rocket's most identifiable mode of transportation. It often is modified with some sort of resistance, but never enough to keep them from blasting off. The balloon usually has the ability to capture Pikachu or other unsuspecting Pokémon through the use of an extendable clamping hand, or an electric-proof net. Though they are never able to fully trick out the Meowth balloon, it is a sturdy, eco-friendly reminder of just how persistent Jesse and James are. Robot building. Upset from getting ripped off in another Team Rocket get-rich-quick scheme, a large mob surrounds the building in which they're located. With just a single button press, though, the building sprouts legs and arms and walks away. When they use the building in an attempt to capture Pokémon, however, some accurate attacks by Harrison and Ash destroy the building. ARBO Tank. In their never-ending quest to show Giovanni how intelligent they are, Team Rocket has a bright idea: use a multi-ton tank as a getaway car. Still, not even Jesse and James could foresee Togepi and Sentret's takeover and subsequent joy ride inside their tank. Magikarp Submarine. This submarine is the primary mode of underwater transportation for Team Rocket. Pedal-powered, James and Meowth often pick up the slack for a plotting Jesse. Pokémon Mechas. A number of mechas have been created and used by Team Rocket over the years. For example, as the crew discovers a wild Buneary, Team Rocket also finds it. They soon construct a wild and partially effective mech to battle our friends. The machine is resistant to electricity and has extendable claws that it uses to catch Pokémon, along with containers to store them. What it doesn't have is a warranty and, eventually, it needs one.